When 18-year-old Camilla boards a first-class flight to celebrate her college acceptance, she's met with suspicion and humiliation by a flight attendant who doubts she belongs there. But when her father steps in, the situation takes an unexpected turn. What happens next will leave you questioning the power of judgment and the cost of prejudice. The airport buzzed with the usual chaos, travelers rushing to gates, announcements blaring over the intercom, and the faint hum of excitement mixed with exhaustion. Camilla Bones stood near the boarding gate, clutching her ticket tightly. At 18, she had never flown first class before. This was a gift from her father, Maurice Bones, to celebrate her acceptance into Stanford University. It was a moment of pride, not just for her but for him too. She had worked tirelessly, balancing school, part-time jobs, and the weight of expectations. This trip was more than a celebration. It was a symbol of her hard work paying off. Camilla adjusted the strap of her backpack, her fingers brushing against the worn fabric. She wasn't used to luxury, but today, she allowed herself to feel a little special. Her father had insisted on this treat, saying she deserved it. "First class, Camilla. You've earned it," he had said with a proud smile. She could still hear his voice in her head as she handed her ticket to the gate agent and stepped onto the plane. The first-class cabin was unlike anything she had ever seen. Plush seats, soft lighting, and an air of exclusivity surrounded her. She found her seat and settled in, running her hands over the smooth leather. For a moment, she let herself imagine what it would be like to live this kind of life, even if just for a few hours. But her moment of peace was short-lived. "Excuse me, miss." A sharp voice interrupted her thoughts. Camilla looked up to see a flight attendant standing over her. The woman, Vanessa Hilton, had perfectly styled hair, a crisp uniform, and an expression that was anything but welcoming. "Can I see your ticket, please?" Camilla blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, sure," she said, handing over her boarding pass. Vanessa scrutinized it, her lips pursed. Then she looked back at Camilla, her gaze lingering a little too long on Camilla's hair and her modest outfit, a beige-ribbed long-sleeve top. "This is first class," Vanessa said, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" Camilla felt a knot form in her stomach. "Yes, this is my seat," she replied, forcing a polite smile. "My dad booked it for me." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, her voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "First class isn't exactly common for someone like you. Are you sure you didn't accidentally wander in here?" The words stung. Camilla's cheeks burned as she realized what Vanessa was implying. "I have my ticket right here," she said, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside her. "I belong here." Vanessa's lips curled into a faint, condescending smile. "Well, we'll see about that. First class is for our most valued guests. I'll need to verify this with the gate agent." Camilla's heart pounded as Vanessa walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the aisle floor. The other passengers were watching now, some whispering to each other, others pretending not to notice. Camilla felt exposed, as if every pair of eyes was judging her, questioning her right to be there. She clenched her fists, trying to steady her breathing. She thought of her father, of how hard he had worked to give her this opportunity. She thought of the countless nights she had stayed up studying, determined to prove herself. And now, here she was, being treated like she didn't belong. Vanessa returned a few minutes later, her expression unreadable. "It seems your ticket is valid," she said, though her tone suggested she still didn't believe it. "But let's make sure you understand the rules of first class. This isn't economy. We expect our guests to behave accordingly." Camilla's jaw tightened. "I know how to behave," she said, her voice low but firm. "I'm here because I earned it." Vanessa gave her a tight smile and walked away, leaving Camilla to simmer in her seat. The other passengers slowly returned to their own worlds, but the damage was done. Camilla stared out the window, her excitement replaced by a heavy sense of injustice. Just as she was about to text her father, she heard a familiar voice. "Camilla? What's going on?" She turned to see Maurice Bones striding down the aisle, his sharp suit and confident demeanor commanding attention. He took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I just got humiliated for existing." Morris's expression darkened. He glanced at Vanessa, who was now avoiding his gaze, and then back at his daughter. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice calm but laced with anger. And as Camilla recounted the incident, Morris's jaw tightened. He had spent his career exposing injustice, and now it had touched his own daughter. This wasn't just about a flight attendant's rudeness. It was about something much deeper. The plane's engines roared to life, but the tension in the cabin was palpable. Camilla sat back in her seat, her father beside her, both of them silently preparing for what would come next. The flight had just begun, but the real journey, one of confrontation, reflection, and ultimately redemption, was about to take off. The hum of the airplane's engines filled the cabin, but the tension between Camilla, Maurice, and Vanessa was louder than any mechanical noise. Maurice Bones sat beside his daughter, his sharp eyes scanning the first-class cabin. He had built his career as a journalist uncovering corruption and injustice, and now that same instinct kicked in. His daughter had been humiliated, and he wasn't about to let it slide. "Camilla," Maurice said, his voice calm but firm, "tell me exactly what happened. Don't leave anything out." Camilla took a deep breath, her hands still trembling slightly. She recounted the incident, how Vanessa had questioned her presence in first class, how she had insinuated that Camilla didn't belong, and how the other passengers had watched in silence. Maurice listened intently, his jaw tightening with every word. When she finished, Maurice leaned back in his seat, his mind racing. He knew this wasn't just about one flight attendant's rudeness. It was about the systemic prejudice that people like Camilla faced every day. And as a father, he couldn't let it go unanswered. "Stay here," he said, standing up. His voice was steady, but there was a fire in his eyes that Camilla hadn't seen in a long time. She nodded, watching as her father walked down the aisle with the confidence of a man who had faced down corrupt politicians and powerful CEOs. Vanessa was at the front of the cabin, organizing drink orders with another flight attendant. She looked up as Maurice approached, her expression faltering for a moment before she plastered on a professional smile. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her tone polite but distant. "Yes," Maurice said, his voice low but carrying enough weight to make the other flight attendant excuse herself. "You can explain why you felt it was appropriate to humiliate my daughter." Vanessa's smile wavered. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir. I was simply doing my job." "Your job?" Maurice interrupted, his tone sharp. "Your job is to ensure the comfort and safety of all passengers, not to single out a young woman because of her race or appearance. My daughter earned her seat here, just like everyone else in this cabin. Who are you to decide who belongs?" Vanessa's cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. "Sir, I was following protocol. First class is reserved for our most valued guests, and I had to verify her ticket. It's standard procedure." Maurice took a step closer, his presence towering. "Standard procedure doesn't include public humiliation. You didn't just verify her ticket, you made her feel like she didn't belong. And you did it in front of everyone. That's not protocol. That's prejudice." The other passengers were watching now, some whispering to each other, others pretending not to notice. A man in a business suit a few rows back cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all just calm down," he said, his tone dismissive. "It's a long flight, and we don't need this kind of drama." Maurice turned to face him, his gaze piercing. "Drama? Is that what you call it when someone is treated unfairly because of the color of their skin? Or is it only drama when it inconveniences you?" The man opened his mouth to respond but thought better of it and looked away. Maurice turned back to Vanessa, his voice quieter but no less intense. "You owe my daughter an apology, not just for what you did, but for the way you made her feel. And if you can't see why that's important, then you're part of the problem." Vanessa's hands clenched at her sides, her professional demeanor cracking under the weight of Morris's words. She glanced around the cabin, as if searching for support, but the other passengers avoided her gaze. Even her colleague, the other flight attendant, had disappeared into the galley. For a moment, it seemed like Vanessa might argue back. But then her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just doing my job." Maurice shook his head. "That's not good enough. Your job is to treat people with respect, no matter who they are or where they come from. And if you can't do that, then maybe you're in the wrong line of work." Vanessa looked down, her face pale. Maurice didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked back to his seat, his heart still pounding with a mix of anger and frustration. Camilla watched him approach, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and worry. "Dad?" she said softly as he sat down. "Are you okay?" Maurice took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "I'm fine," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But this isn't over. What happened to you wasn't right, and I'm not going to let it slide." Camilla nodded, her gaze drifting to Vanessa, who was now retreating to the galley with her head down. For the first time, Camilla felt a flicker of pity for the woman. She had been wrong, but there was something in Vanessa's eyes that hinted at a deeper struggle. The rest of the flight passed in uneasy silence. The other passengers avoided eye contact with Maurice and Camilla, as if acknowledging the incident would make them complicit. Camilla stared out the window, her mind racing. She had always known the world could be unfair, but this was the first time it had felt so personal. As the plane began its descent, Maurice leaned over to his daughter. "We're going to talk about this more when we land," he said. "But for now, just know that I'm proud of you. You handled yourself with dignity, and that's more than I can say for some people on this plane." Camilla managed a small smile, but her heart was heavy. She had always admired her father's strength and determination, but now she wondered what it would cost them to fight this battle. And as the plane touched down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The plane touched down, but the tension from the confrontation lingered like a storm cloud. Passengers hurried to gather their belongings, eager to escape the uncomfortable atmosphere. Camilla and Maurice remained seated, waiting for the crowd to thin. Camilla glanced toward the front of the cabin, where Vanessa was avoiding eye contact, her usual poise replaced by a nervous energy. As they stepped off the plane, Maurice placed a reassuring hand on Camilla's shoulder. "We're not done with this," he said quietly. "But for now, let's get to the hotel and regroup." Camilla nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about Vanessa, the way the flight attendant had looked at her, how she had spoken to her. It wasn't just about the humiliation. It was about the assumptions people made based on her appearance. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and yet, in that moment, none of it had mattered. That evening, Camilla sat by the window of their hotel room, staring out at the city lights. Maurice was on the phone, his voice low but intense. She could tell he was talking to someone from his network, likely planning his next move. She admired his determination, but part of her wished they could just let it go. The thought of reliving the incident in front of the world made her stomach churn. "Camilla," Maurice said, hanging up the phone, "I have a team working on this. We will expose what happened. We have to hold people accountable for their actions." Camilla turned to face him, her expression conflicted. "I get that, Dad, but what if it makes things worse? What if people just see me as the girl who caused a scene?" Maurice walked over and sat beside her. "You didn't cause anything. Vanessa made a choice, and now she has to face the consequences. This isn't just about you, it's about everyone who's ever been treated unfairly because of who they are. If we don't speak up, nothing will change." Camilla sighed, knowing he was right but still feeling the weight of it all. "I just wish it didn't have to be this way." Maurice squeezed her hand. "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes the hardest fights are the ones worth fighting." Meanwhile, Vanessa sat in the crew lounge, her hands trembling as she scrolled through her phone. The confrontation with Maurice had shaken her more than she cared to admit. She had always prided herself on being professional, on maintaining control in high-pressure situations. But today, she had let her biases get the better of her. Her phone buzzed with a notification, and her heart sank. A video of the incident had already started circulating online. The caption read, "Flight attendant humiliates black teen in first class." The comments were brutal, with people calling her out for her behavior and demanding accountability. Vanessa's chest tightened as she read through the messages. She had always tried to be perfect at her job, to meet the impossibly high standards set by her airline and the entitled passengers she served. But now all it took was one mistake, one moment of impulse and bad judgment, to unravel all of this. Her colleague, Sarah, sat down beside her. "You okay?" she asked, her tone cautious. Vanessa shook her head, speaking softly. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just doing my job." Sarah hesitated before responding. "I get that, Vanessa, but you have to see how it looked. That girl didn't deserve to be treated like that." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I don't know how to fix this." Back at the hotel, Camilla and Maurice were preparing for an interview with a local news outlet. Maurice had arranged it quickly, knowing the story would gain traction. Camilla sat in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. She felt like a different person from the girl who had boarded the plane that morning. "You ready?" Maurice asked, standing in the doorway. Camilla took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The interview was intense. The reporter asked pointed questions about the incident, and Camilla answered honestly, her voice steady despite the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. Maurice stood by her side, his presence a constant source of strength. When the reporter asked how she felt about Vanessa, Camilla paused. "I don't hate her," she said finally. "I think she made a mistake, but I also think she's a product of a system that teaches people to judge others based on their appearance. I hope this makes people think twice about the way they treat people." The reporter nodded, clearly impressed by her maturity, and Maurice gave her a proud smile. As the interview aired, reactions poured in from across the country. Some people praised Camilla for her courage, while others criticized Vanessa for her actions. The story sparked a broader conversation about racism, classism, and the biases that permeate society. Vanessa watched the interview from her hotel room, her heart heavy with guilt. She had always thought of herself as a good person, but now she was forced to confront the prejudices she had carried without even realizing it. She picked up her phone and typed out a message to Camilla, her fingers trembling. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I was wrong, and I hope one day you can forgive me." She hesitated before hitting send, knowing it wouldn't fix everything but hoping it was a step in the right direction. The morning after the interview, Camilla woke up to a flood of notifications on her phone. Her social media was inundated with messages of support, outrage, and everything in between. She scrolled through the comments, her emotions swinging between gratitude and overwhelm. "Dad," she called out, her voice tinged with anxiety. "Have you seen this?" Maurice walked into the room, holding a cup of coffee. "I have," he said, his tone calm but firm. "It's a lot to take in, but this is what we wanted, to start a conversation. People are listening now." Camilla nodded, but her mind was racing. What if it gets out of control? What if people start attacking Vanessa too much? I don't want her life ruined over this. Maurice sat down beside her, his expression thoughtful. "You're showing a lot of empathy, Camilla, and that's a good thing. But remember, Vanessa made a choice. The consequences she's facing are a result of her actions, not yours. That said, if you want to address the public and ask for restraint, we can do that." Camilla hesitated, then nodded. "I think I should. I don't want this to turn into a witch hunt." Meanwhile, Vanessa was holed up in her apartment, avoiding the outside world. Her phone had been ringing nonstop, calls from her employer, the media, and even strangers who had seen the story online. She had read Camilla's interview and felt a mix of shame and relief. Shame for what she had done, and relief that Camilla had shown her more compassion than she deserved. When she saw Camilla's live video pop up on her feed, she clicked on it immediately. Camilla's face appeared on the screen, her expression calm but determined. "Hi, everyone," Camilla began. "First, I want to thank you all for your support. It means so much to me and my family. But I also want to say something to those of you who are angry on my behalf. While I appreciate your outrage, I don't want this to turn into a campaign of hate against Vanessa. What she did was wrong, but I believe people can change. Let's use this moment to educate and grow, not to tear someone down." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears as she listened. She had expected anger, but instead, Camilla was offering her a lifeline. It was more than she deserved. The airline, however, was less forgiving. Later that day, Vanessa received an email summoning her to a meeting with her supervisors. She knew what was coming. When she arrived at the office, the atmosphere was tense. Her manager, a stern woman named Linda, got straight to the point. "Vanessa, your actions have caused significant damage to the airline's reputation," Linda said, her tone cold. "We've received countless complaints, and the media attention has been overwhelming. We have no choice but to suspend you pending an investigation." Vanessa's heart sank, but she nodded. "I understand," she said quietly. "I take full responsibility for what happened." Linda's expression softened slightly. "Vanessa, I've known you for years. You've always been a dedicated employee. But this was a serious lapse in judgment. I hope you use this time to reflect on what happened and why." As Vanessa left the office, she felt a mix of emotions: guilt, fear, and a strange sense of determination. She knew she had to make things right, not just for herself but for Camilla and everyone else she had hurt. She pulled out her phone and typed out a message to Camilla, her hands trembling. "Thank you for your kindness. I don't deserve it, but I want to make things right. Can we talk?" Camilla read the message and showed it to Maurice. "What do you think?" she asked. Maurice considered it for a moment. "It's up to you, Camilla. If you're ready to talk to her, I'll support you. But if you're not, that's okay too." Camilla took a deep breath. "I think I need to hear what she has to say." That evening, Camilla and Vanessa met in a quiet cafe. The atmosphere was awkward at first, but Camilla's calm demeanor helped ease the tension. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Vanessa said, her voice shaky. I don't even know where to start. I'm so sorry for what I did. I was wrong, and I hurt you, and I can't take that back." Camilla nodded. "I appreciate your apology, but I need to know, why did you do it? What made you think it was okay to treat me that way?" Vanessa looked down, her hands clasped tightly. "I wish I had a good answer. The truth is, I've been under so much pressure at work. First class is supposed to be perfect, and I'm constantly judged by passengers who think they're better than me. But that's no excuse. I let my own frustrations and biases cloud my judgment, and I took it out on you. It was unfair, and I'm so sorry." Camilla listened quietly, her expression thoughtful. "I believe you," she said finally. "But this isn't just about me. It's about the way people like me are treated every day. If you really want to make things right, you need to do more than apologize. You need to take action." Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I will. I promise." The next day, Vanessa posted a public apology on her social media accounts. She took full responsibility for her actions and announced her intention to participate in anti-racism training and volunteer with organizations that promote equality and inclusion. The post was met with mixed reactions, but Camilla shared it with a simple caption: "Change starts with accountability. Let's keep the conversation going." The weeks following the incident were a whirlwind for both Camilla and Vanessa. Camilla's story had sparked a national conversation about racism, privilege, and accountability. She had become a symbol of resilience and grace under pressure, but the attention was both a blessing and a burden. Meanwhile, Vanessa was navigating her own journey of self-reflection and redemption, determined to make amends for her actions. Camilla stood at the podium in the auditorium of her new university, her heart pounding as she looked out at the sea of faces. This was her first public speaking event since the incident, and the room was packed with students, faculty, and even members of the press. Maurice sat in the front row, his proud smile giving her the courage to begin. "Thank you all for being here," Camilla said, her voice steady. "When I boarded that plane a few weeks ago, I never imagined the journey it would take me on. What started as a moment of humiliation turned into an opportunity for all of us to reflect on the biases we carry and the impact they have on others. She paused, taking a deep breath. I've learned a lot over the past few weeks. Standing up for yourself isn't easy, but it's necessary. I've learned that forgiveness is a choice, and it's one that can lead to healing. And change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with a single step. Camilla went on to share her experiences, her struggles, and her hopes for the future. She spoke about the importance of empathy, the need for difficult conversations, and the power of using your voice to create change. When she finished, the room erupted into applause, and Maurice stood up, his eyes shining with pride. After the event, Camilla was approached by a group of students who thanked her for her courage and shared their own stories of facing prejudice. She listened intently, offering words of encouragement and solidarity. She felt like her voice truly mattered. Vanessa's journey was quieter but no less significant. She had kept her promise to take action, enrolling in anti-racism workshops and volunteering with organizations that promoted diversity and inclusion. It wasn't easy. She faced skepticism and criticism from those who doubted her sincerity, but she remained committed to her goal of becoming a better person. One afternoon, Vanessa received an email from Camilla. It was short but meaningful. I saw your post about the workshop you attended. I'm proud of you for taking this step. Change isn't easy, but it's worth it. Keep going. Vanessa read the message several times, tears welling up in her eyes. She typed out a response, her fingers trembling. Thank you, Camilla. Your kindness means more than I can say. I'm still learning, but I'm committed to doing better. I hope one day I can make you proud. The story of Camilla and Vanessa had become a catalyst for change. The airline where Vanessa worked implemented new training programs for its staff, focusing on diversity, inclusion, and unconscious bias. Other companies followed suit, recognizing the need to address systemic issues within their organizations. Camilla's speech at the university went viral, inspiring countless people to share their own stories and start conversations about prejudice in their communities. She became a sought-after speaker, using her platform to advocate for equality and justice. Maurice, ever the proud father, continued to support Camilla every step of the way. You've done more in a few weeks than most people do in a lifetime, he told her one evening. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. The story came full circle when Camilla and Vanessa met again, this time in a more private setting. They sat in a quiet park, the autumn leaves falling around them. The tension that had once defined their relationship was gone, replaced by a sense of mutual respect and understanding. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully make up for what I did, Vanessa said, her voice filled with emotion. But I want you to know that I'm committed to being better for everyone I encounter. Camilla smiled softly. That's all anyone can ask for. We all make mistakes, but it's what we do afterward that defines us. I believe in second chances. I believe in you. Vanessa responded emotionally. Thank you, Camilla. You've changed my life in ways I can't even explain. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the park, Camilla and Vanessa sat in comfortable silence. Their journey had been fraught with pain and conflict, but it had also been a journey of growth and understanding. Change is possible, but it starts with us. What steps will you take to challenge your own biases and create a more inclusive world? If this story inspired you, share it with someone who might like it, and subscribe to Embrace the Journey for more powerful tales of resilience and redemption.